So there's a global pandemic. A virus is sweeping across our world still, and society has changed. Why is this happening? Is somebody going to do something about it? Are we going to get a vaccine anytime in the next 6 months? If you haven't considered these questions yet, you will soon. And we will be here with you, your personal guides on this journey, this descent into chaos. Thank you for joining us on Staring at Goats.
Thank you everyone for hanging out here with us this fine Wednesday evening on Staring at Goats. We are going to guide you through your journey through COVID and hopefully give you some info you can use. I'm your host, Steven, joined as always by other host, Jacob, and other host, TV's Travis. We are going to rock and roll this show because, my golly, it's late for us. Jacob has been up playing Cyberpunk till the wee hours of the morning and hasn't slept. He's practically a cyborg himself.
Yes.
And with that, we are going to try and make this show happen, make it as fulfilling and entertaining. And we have a lot of news, including some emails from you guys, which is exciting. Dude, we got emails, y'all.
Tons of emails. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. And it means the world to us because when we can't do guests anymore, we still want your input. And that input can come in the form of an email, or if you've got a phone with the Anchor app on it, the Anchor app where you can find this podcast, you can actually use that to leave us a voicemail with your phone. It couldn't be easier.
Woo-woo.
So, hey, if you want to do that, consider it, and we'll play it on the show next time. But for now, let's drop in right off the bat to the round table. Let's talk about how we're feeling. Travis, what you got going on?
It was a pretty quiet week overall for me, except I had to do a little fact checking, a little bit of meme squashing on some Facebook timelines that really I should just not be looking at all because all they do is frustrate me. But family, what can you do? Outside of that, it's been pretty quiet, which is good. I like that. Work is picking up because it's the end of the year, so I need quiet the rest of the way.
Do you find any satisfaction whatsoever in doing the Facebook, I'm going to correct this person? And does it ever get you anywhere?
It can, because typically what I'm correcting, I don't go into it saying, look, you're wrong and you're dumb and here's why. I go into it with, okay, I understand what your argument is. However, your argument shouldn't be that, it should be this.
Yeah.
Because it's typically what I bristle at is things like, oh, the Facebook is trampling our First Amendment rights by censoring something. And I'm like, well, they're not, because you don't have First Amendment rights on Facebook, but that's a whole different argument. You can be upset that they're taking stuff down. That's fine. That's a perfectly valid argument, but it has nothing to do with the First Amendment or constitutional rights. That's the kind of stuff. So yes, in a way I do.
Is your argument that anytime you sign an end-user license agreement that you automatically give up your First Amendment rights?
It's not so much that you give them up, but the First Amendment rights are... Yeah, I mean, the First Amendment is about whether or not the government can do something to you for what you say.
Yeah.
Like, I can walk into the state capitol and call every one of them complete jackasses, and I'm not going to end up in a gulag because of it.
Yeah.
That's the First Amendment. But it doesn't mean that I can go onto Facebook and say whatever I want without repercussion.
Oh,
Sure.
That has nothing to do with it. And that's the type of thing that I tend to bristle at. Or horrendously out of place statistics that mean
Oh,
nothing.
that'll get Jacob in a hot minute.
Out of context data is just drives me batty.
Oh yeah, out of context data or just grossly inaccurate data.
Yeah.
Like saying, 1 in 10,000 when you mean 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 100 of something, but you say, oh, well, it was 1 in 10. Like, I understand hyperbole, but there's a point at which hyperbole doesn't fit. And so but yeah, out of context and grossly inaccurate data really drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Because it's not hard to look that information up and get it correct.
Yeah. And if you do make a mistake, then have enough character to actually correct it. Because if you don't, then you're just propagating the insanity that we're currently facing.
Right. If someone calls you out on a statistic, don't say, "Well, it was a rhetorical thing anyway." No, that doesn't work either. A rhetorical question is not just, "Well, I didn't." It drives me crazy.
Mhm.
It really, really does.
As
So
well it should. You know, you got to have something that makes you upset on the internet. I spent the last like 30 minutes before the show arguing with Landon on text through text over refresh rates. Speaking of, I think he's on his way walking to Hawaii right now. I know we've
Walking.
been yeah. Yeah,
Our
yeah.
Jesus
That's
landed Jones.
that's what he told
That's
me.
his name.
That's what he told me. But yeah, so it's one of those things. I was like, Stephanie was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm texting Landon because he's wrong, and he's trying to convince me I'm wrong, and I don't know if I'm being gaslit." And now I'm starting to question whether I'm right, even though I studied this topic for like 3 months before. It was just, it was nuts. And now I still don't
Steven.
know if I'm right or wrong. What?
Steven. He was ribbing you. He was pulling your chain. You
I
know he was.
know. He'll
He
spend
loves to do it. He will watch this.
He spends, but he's so like he's into it. He will
Oh, I
spend an
know.
hour. He will spend an hour knowing he can just dig at me with all these fake rules and words, and I don't know what to believe. I'm so
I
Steven,
love that man.
easy to
Landon.
have you
manipulate.
ever Steven, have you ever taken a puppy and just kind of ruffled its ears and ruffled
Y-
its fur until it
Sure,
just gets crazy?
yeah,
That's what he's doing.
that's what he's
He's
doing
doing
to
that
me. That makes
metaphorically to you.
sense.
He's just riling you up so you'll just run in circles.
And then
Ashley,
he's just like going, "Oh, good boy, good boy, good boy."
Yep, exactly.
Ashley has actually told me that before. She's like, "You're like a puppy to Landon, and he can just kick you and walk away for 10 minutes and come back, and you'll be like, 'Hey, it's so good to see you.'" I can't believe you were gone for so. And it's true. It's 100% true. That's exactly how I am. But I'm also that way with my good buddy Jacob. Even though he doesn't kick me, he treats me much better.
I
Jacob would
try not
never
to kick
kick
you.
me. No, Jacob
No,
would
I
never
don't kick
kick
you.
me. But when I see Jacob, I'm like, yeah, my boy Tater.
Yeah, that's right. We do Tater and Dwayne for at least the first half hour after we hadn't seen each other for a while.
That's exactly right because that's what you do. Jacob, how you feeling?
Oh man, I'm great. I don't have to. I got all my rants out last week, and I exploded on all the listeners, and you're welcome. I think for that. But I still drove by Apex Skate Park, and I still saw very few masks. So it my rant didn't do anything. So no big deal. What I
They
want
need
to chat. Go ahead.
I was gonna say they need to listen to the show. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Right.
What I want to chat about is the vaccine.
Yeah.
We have emergency youth authorization by the FDA for a vaccine. It was this past week, which rad. That's so rock and roll. So I've actually fielded quite a few questions from family members about whether or not they should roll up their sleeve, and my answer to them was, why wouldn't you? I don't understand. We've been in quarantines and lockdowns and changed and altered our behaviors for the last 8 months, 9 months. What we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. This is the light at the end of the tunnel. Why wouldn't you walk toward the light at the end of the tunnel? Why would you stay in the tunnel? I don't understand. Um, but a lot of them were like, well, you 99% chance your body will just take care of it itself.
Sure.
And I kind of went, okay, but I'm not sure you understand the purpose of a vaccine. Yeah, you're right. You have a 1% chance of dying, and your body will take care of it 99% of the time. If you have a vaccine coursing through your body, there's a 95% chance you'll never even have to face that decision point.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, hey, look, I don't even have to. I'm not even going to get sick. I'm not even going to get the virus. It's not even going to happen. So why even give yourself that 1% chance? You've decreased your chances to 0.01%.
That's a much less percents.
I'm
Yes.
not understanding where this is coming from. And I get it that, we've got people that are going, well, but that 1%, your body will just take care of it. Well, yeah, yeah, but do you want to roll the dice, and do you want to be that 1%? Next thing you know, your family's all got to deal with it. No, that's not me. I would much rather just roll up my sleeve. Let's rock and roll. Now, the one thing I will tell you is and the people in Discord know this. I spent the wee hours of the morning, the night after they made the decision to um, the advisory panel made the decision to advise for the authorization. I spent that night reviewing over the data as much as I could that they released, and the data looks fantastic, guys. Like truly wonderful data. The deaths weren't even COVID related. The deaths were actually heart attack related, and I believe there was a stroke as well. I mean, it's probably some of the best data that I've seen come from a vaccine, which is absolutely shocking. I was not expecting this quality of data to come out this first round, but it did. And it looks like Moderna's potentially going to get authorization tomorrow. So we may have two vaccines at play, which just means that it will accelerate the timeline of us actually getting out and returning to some semblance of normal. So roll up them sleeves, baby. Roll them up. Let's rock and roll.
And that's 2 out
Yeah.
of 11, y'all. Like we if we get 2, there's another 9
Yep.
in different phases of testing. You've got the Oxford one and the Johnson and Johnson one are probably the ones coming next. I would
Yeah.
imagine they were the first to maybe AstraZeneca.
AstraZeneca's had some clinical trial problems, and so they've actually
They
pulled
roughed
back
it.
on some of theirs. So they're well, they might have mismanaged the clinical trial just a touch, and so it kind of got away from them, and now they've got to backtrack and try to figure out how to fix it,
Yeah.
which is never a good position to be in, especially whenever the spotlights are on you at this moment. To have some kind of a small mishap is not going to be a good thing, but
Yeah.
we'll see what
Sure.
happens. But I will tell you this. The advisory panel, four people who actually voted against it, the main reason that three of the four people voted against it was because they were trying to authorize the usage in 16, 17-year olds, which is, I mean, technically, they don't have the kind of data that they do in adults, which are considered 18 to 65. So the, the people that voted against it, I agree with them that children probably shouldn't be taking the vaccine at this moment because we don't have enough data for them. I disagree to not allow emergency use authorization for adults because, in my mind, there's a reason why it's an emergency use. What they should have done is just said yes on the condition that it's 18 and older. Um,
Yeah.
because
That was
the point there is that if it was for an FDA panel and this was a drug that was going into mass release on a normal authorization scale, then I completely agree with the no vote. But an emergency use authorization, I'm not sure I agree with it. I would have much rather seen a yes with conditions.
Yeah.
yeah,
Makes
that was
sense.
my thought as well.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited about the vaccine. I could yeah, because it means the future is going to be open, and I think about those people like you're talking about. They're just like, I don't know if I'm going to get it. I mean, are these people that have actually, because you said we've been in quarantine, we've spent the last 8 months doing nothing. Are these people that have actually spent 8 months doing nothing? Or are these people that have gone out and done whatever they wanted anyway? Because who cares? And they're like, I don't know if I want a vaccine. I'm going down to Jimmy's Diner and I'm going to sit down and eat a waffle.
I mean,
Um,
Yeah.
it may be the same people, but I will tell you this: no matter what they say, everything in their life has been affected, and the reason why is because store hours have changed,
sure.
bar
Yeah.
hours have changed, gym hours have changed. Family members haven't been at Thanksgiving. Family members aren't going to come to Christmas. Their life has been uprooted, whether or not they want to admit it or believe it or not.
Yeah.
Hmm.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's also a very good perspective. So they really just want to go back to the bar as soon as possible, or
Yes.
Chili's. They really want to eat
I mean,
Chili's.
those
I
baby
feel
back
like
ribs, baby.
I feel like the
Chili,
people who
baby
want
back
the
ribs.
people who
Small
are like
ribs, small ribs.
anti-vaccine and don't care are the same people that are like Applebee's and Olive Garden are fine dining. That's where they take grandma when she comes. It's grandma's birthday. We're going to Applebee's to eat boneless wings. Um, you know, to be fair, I think
So
Applebee's
much
and
wrong with that sentence.
right. Yeah, I know, right? Saucy nugs or die.
Where do you start? Yes.
I know. Well, that's the point, right? Like, I remember
Yeah.
walking into Olive Garden and walking in the lobby and seeing a dude in a bucket hat and a Hawaiian shirt and khaki shorts and boat shoes, and I'm like, that guy's in his going out gear. He's going out on the town and having him a nice Italian dinner. Uh, because that's what Olive Garden is. As someone who happily took Stephanie to Olive Garden when I lived in West Virginia and there was nowhere else to go, yeah, that was a fine dining date. I'm gonna eat
Yeah.
breadsticks, salad, and spaghetti, then just have diarrhea because oh boy, that stuff. Let me tell you. cut right through you like a hot knife
It's
through
the
butter.
breadsticks that do you.
Yeah, that or I don't know. Lord knows. I don't have anything much this week, you guys, other than just we quarantined again. I don't know if I mentioned that last week because last Monday we had some HVAC folks in. I probably talked about that. So we quarantined again, but we're now 10 days out of that. I think is that 10 days or 8, 9, whatever.
9 today, but tomorrow will be 10. It doesn't matter. You're 10
No,
days out tomorrow. We're good.
Nobody's sick. We made it through. We survived. It's not something I look forward to doing again. They'll have to because we got new windows coming and people are going to have to be in here working on my windows. And I'll just quarantine again. So it's like, I'm tired of this roller coaster. But at the same time, you kind of just get used to it. Oh, saw people. Gonna quarantine. Stay inside.
Yeah.
Do whatever.
Mhm.
Or if somebody does come in, you're going to have the incident of having to quarantine on that day. You do the things you're not going to do otherwise. Like I'm going to wear my
Yeah.
mask and go grocery shop real quick.
Yep.
Not throw caution to the wind. I don't mean for it to sound like that, but do the things that are not risky but are riskier than you typically would do because you just want to go peruse the wine section for a minute because you're going to be
Or
quarantined down for 2 weeks anyway.
or if there's something that you've been holding off, like going to the bank. I have been
Oh,
holding
sure.
off going to the bank to create an account for my son since he was born. And the main reason why I want to account for him is so that people that are not immediate family can have a place to give them gifts if they want
Yeah,
to give them
dump
gifts,
that
and so
money.
they could just drop a quarter in the bank account. But I haven't gone into the bank, and I feel like the next time I quarantine, I have made a commitment to say I'm going to get this taken care of. All I need to do is sign a piece of paper and walk back out. But I'm until I quarantine, I'm not going to do that, and I haven't had a chance to quarantine or need to quarantine recently. So as soon as I get a chance to next time, I will. But
Sure.
I feel like that falls into the category of what you're talking about there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and I got good news for on one thing. We did
Jimmy,
we had to go to a office to do some home refinance stuff. We had to sign all of our papers, and they had curbside paper signing. So we pull up to the law office, and I'll call them, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm here to sign for my closing." And they were like, "Cool, somebody will be out in a minute." And the legal assistant came out with all the papers in a folder and just handed me one me and Stephanie the papers through the window, and we'd sign them and hand them back. And but everybody had on masks. We were doing our thing. And I was like, "This is wildly convenient." That it's freezing cold out there, and the guy's just like, "Now this document's where they take your house if you don't pay for it." I'm like, "Okay, I'll sign that too."
you got to love
This
the honesty of some people if they're like that. It's just refreshing at times.
Yeah, the best one is like you're gonna have to pay for this. This is sign. They give you this one like last. Sign this one up here if you don't want to complete the finance. You don't want to complete the closing. Sign down here if you want to go ahead and accept all the terms. I'm like, why don't you give this to me last? He's like, there are people who get all the way to the end and go, I don't know if I agree to the thing I signed a minute ago, and it's like a big old hassle. Like what?
Ugh.
My whole perspective on this kind of stuff is like, do you want the thing? Then you have to sign the papers to get the thing. If you don't want the thing, then go home because you can't get the thing without signing all these other things. It's like a EULA. I would like to use Microsoft Windows. Well, if you want to use Microsoft Windows, you got to click the button. But I don't trust all these terms. Then don't use Windows.
Yep.
Whatever. Big
There are a lot of other operating systems you could go use.
Yeah, you should try a Linux operating system. It is open source and free as in Libre. Yeah, anyway. So good. Yeah,
Steve,
I'm ready to be out.
go
Yeah.
ahead. I was
No,
going to
I'm
say
done.
real quickly, we have two questions in the chat
Yeah,
that I
follow up
wanted to
with them.
quick get to. So Miller's Wonderland, she has a question. I'm not sure. If the vaccine doesn't work, what if it has a very bad effect on people, and what if it kills people? That is 100% a possibility. That's the reason why this vaccine was given to so many people, was to reduce that risk. I believe it was successfully reduced, so I don't think it's a huge risk. There is a risk that people will have side effects. They will get sick. They will experience nausea. They will experience headaches. Same way with putting any kind of vaccine or any kind of new protein into your body like that in that kind of form. So I do anticipate quite a bit of side effects. Now, if they do start seeing people die, if this emergency use authorization does not stop them. They still have to continue to collect data. They still have to finish their clinical trials. They still have to finish their full submissions. They still have to get actual approval. All this does is say we've seen enough to say yes, go ahead and release it commercially, but make sure that you finish collecting the data, and here's a time window which you have to submit that data. That's all that this says. It does not say, oh, you don't have to go through the rest of these processes. No, you still have to. So
Yeah.
anytime that they start seeing deaths or start seeing major illnesses, or anytime something happens where maybe they need to contact the FDA because I don't know, people turned into zombies, then they've got to go to the FDA and say, hey guys, we saw this. What do we do? Do we stop? Do we stop commercialization? Do we stop the rollout? What do we do? And then there will be another decision point by the FDA to say we're going to revoke your authorization, or we're going to allow your authorization to continue. So the FDA is really the gatekeepers here, and if people do start dying, if there are some major ramifications, this emergency use authorization will be revoked pretty quickly.
Okay, that's
So
good. That's good to know for sure.
just to keep everybody clear, if major things happen, they they will pull the plug here. And Ace, man, I'm sorry you're having so many problems. I've been keeping up with it. I haven't been able to respond a ton, but man, we're there with you in thought and with and in our prayers. But when you do get out of the hospital, should you quarantine? It depends on your contact level. It depends on your comfort level. It depends on your situation. For me, in my situation, we've got some immunocompromised people. We've got some people on some chemotherapeutics. We've got some issues within our pod. So I would quarantine. But if you feel a little more comfortable, then do what you feel comfortable doing. Um, it, do you feel like you potentially were exposed? Do you feel like the people around you potentially were exposed? Are you feeling a little bit ill relative to? Because I know every time I get out of the hospital or leave a hospital, I always kind of I don't feel 100% or I don't feel right because I believe it's exhausting. It's mentally, physically, and emotionally draining to be in the hospital. So you probably won't feel 100%, and that may be due to the hospital stay. It may be because you picked something up, but whatever. The point there is do what you're comfortable with and do what you think is right for the people around you, and the people that will be coming over for Christmas and etc. So that's my only advice. It's the best I got, and I hope it helps.
Awesome. Those are great questions. Jacob, thanks again for being thanks for choosing your career path and your college degree so that you could be on this show and say things from some plane of actual knowledge, because I think that added a whole lot of value. Just the fact that you've been through the data with the eye that you're able to go through it with, where the rest of us are looking through a lens of whatever media outlet we choose says this is what we know. You were able to look at the data and actually pull out real confidence in it because you've looked at
Hmm.
this kind of stuff a million times. And I think
Hmm.
that's really valuable for those who listen, because I know I've been approached with questions from family members like, "Would you get the vaccine? I don't know. It's new, and vaccines kill people, and the typical thing." And I think some of this is perfectly rational fear in some ways. Like, you're injecting a
Oh yeah.
material into your body. There's a survival mechanism in your brain that says that sounds dangerous, and it sure. I mean, to some degree, yeah, I think it's worth you looking into. But the
Oh
good
sure.
news is that one of the reasons that humans have made it this far is we learned how to team up and go, Bob over there knows how to make fire. I know how to hunt boars. So Bob and I are going to do this. I'm going to let him cook fire, and I'm going to go hunt boars. And that's how we ended up doing it. So, I mean, really, that's what it is. I don't know this stuff, but there are people who do. So I'm going to choose to lean on them and go, I got to trust you because you've put the time and effort into learning and being a part of that particular tribe of people that understands the body and medicine. I don't. But when your computer breaks, you can come to me and we'll work this out together. We'll figure it out. Um,
Hmm.
So I think that's important to think of. Nobody wants to put in a vaccine that's going to kill you. That's not the goal.
Hmm.
Nobody wants to track you. Honestly, you're not that interesting to anyone. It's not like you're the
Also
Manchurian
true.
candidate. We're gonna put this bomb in your head. That what that was about? Maybe not. I don't remember. I get my Denzel Washington movies mixed up. He had a bomb in his head in one of them. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I don't think that was Manchurian, but
that wasn't the Manchurian candidate. That was that
no,
virtuosity. That was probably virtuosity.
could have been.
Russell Crowe was in that. People forget he was way skinnier back then. The isolation report. Let's do this thing. Good news, everyone. The FDA has issued an emergency use authorization for the Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. I'm not going to read
Woohoo!
anything about this because we've already talked about it. It happened. Everybody's excited. They're vaccinating people in New York. They're vaccinating people all over. Doubter XX said that in Alaska they had the first American allergic reaction. I don't
Hmm.
think that that's uncommon for stuff like vaccines.
Nope.
Flu vaccines have allergic reactions. If you're allergic to
Hmm.
eggs, you can't get the flu vaccine, or you have to choose an alternative. So this is not unexpected or uncommon, but it's
Yeah.
important that we recognize that it can occur, so that if we run into people that do have, food allergies and intense allergic reactions to other medications like penicillin, we know that that can happen, and you basically give them a vaccine and just have them hang around. I remember the first time I got a flu shot, they were like, "You ever had a flu shot?" No. They said, "All right, we're gonna give it to you, and I want you to sit over here for about 10 minutes." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay, cool." And while I sat there and mentally almost made my tongue get thicker and had trouble breathing, but it was just me freaking out that it could happen. Like
Yeah.
I'm driving myself into a panic attack over nothing.
Yep.
I remember I got stung by a bee. I was like, "Steph, I got stung by a bee." She's like, "How many times you been stung by bees?" I'm like 3 times. She's like, "Well, you're not gonna die or anything." I was like, "But what if I do? I think my tongue's getting thicker." It wasn't. It was just I was just being ridiculous. But yeah.
Well, I
Anyway.
mean, there are definitely people that have allergic reactions. I'll give you a great example. If you go into the hospital and they start pumping fluids into you, that's usually the first thing that they do whenever you go into the hospital for kind of any kind of ICU type of situation. They start pumping fluids into you. There is a small percentage of people that are allergic to the fluid that they pump into you. It's called dextrans or dextrose. And in that point, I think 1% of the population that's allergic to it, they go into severe anaphylactic shock almost immediately. And they have to go through rescue procedures to try to make sure that they don't die right there on the table. It happens with any kind of exogenous thing that you could potentially put in your body. There are some people that are allergic to latex and can't wear rubber gloves. I mean, there are so many different allergies that this 100% does not shock me that people do have an allergic reaction. There is a foreign body at that point or a foreign protein that's going into your body. So it's going to happen. Um, uh, the hope there and the thought there is that fewer people will have the side effects that are of severe consequence or grave consequence than have the obviously the virus, which I believe the data has shown out.
I knew a guy whose wife was allergic to latex, and they had a lot of kids. Jacob, your turn.
12 kids.
True story.
Germany in Germany enters tightened lockdown as COVID-19 deaths hit a new high. I think if you guys remember, Germany was one that controlled it early on, relaxed some of their um, regulations and their approaches, and then now started seeing some massive increases.
Mhm.
But now they're like, whoa, 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 we're tightening the lockdown as well. Germany reported a record level of coronavirus deaths as it entered a harder lockdown on Wednesday, closing shops and schools to try to bring down stubbornly high new daily infections. The country recorded 180 virus deaths per 100,000 residents over the last 7 days, a new high, and significantly more than the 149 per 100,000 reported last week. Bottom line is a lot of people are getting it. A lot of people, more people are dying. Look in the United States, same thing we were complaining about last week. 3,000 deaths in a single day. We're on par for 3,000 deaths for the last week. I think our average is just below 3,000. We're there. We're in a major way, just like Germany. Germany's chosen to lock down. I actually have instead of reading the rest of the story, I'll give you guys some discussions that I've had. I had a discussion with a gentleman from Ireland, a lady from France, and a different lady from Denmark, and they were telling me about all of their experiences relative to COVID, because that's kind of my icebreaker now. Whenever I speak to for work related things to folks ex US, I ask them how their country's dealing with COVID. And the funny thing was is that most of them are saying the same thing. We're experiencing lockdowns and curfews and making sure that we're getting this under control. And we believe that most of the people in the country are good with that because they have a high sense of nationality or nationalistic type of behaviors and mentalities. The folks in Ireland told me, yeah, we were worst for a while, but now we're first because we went on an 8-week lockdown. He said, right now, we pretty much have zero cases or very few cases. And I'm like, yeah, that reminds me of a very sage man once said, we're always going to be 6 to 8 weeks away from ending this.
Yep.
But yeah,
Always.
Ireland, France, Netherlands, Germany, they're all increasing their lockdown procedures right now, and they're getting it under control. I think we're letting it run rampant where they're actually trying to secure their protocols to make sure that they get it under control.
Yeah. This Mellows Wonderland just brought up a question in the chat. Answer this. Why can you go to Walmart, movies, gas station, work, etc., but can't go to see family for Christmas even if it's only 5 people? I don't understand. I'll tell you why it's a bad idea. It's because you let your guard down at home. You spend more time
Mm-hmm.
inside. You're more likely to struggle not to hug or shake hands or high five. You're eating together. It's not just Christmas. It's not just gathering with family. Like, if you take precautions and your whole family can quarantine themselves off from the world for 10 days, go home. Go to
Do it,
Christmas.
rock and roll,
Go.
baby.
Have a blast. But the
Yeah.
likelihood of most family being able to do that, I can't go home to Christmas. Sucks balls. I hate everything about it. It makes me angry every time I think about it. But I can't go because I know that my parents can't quarantine to that level. I know my dad is doing his best, but works around and hangs out with a lot of roughneck folks, and that I don't know them personally. I can't speak to it. It's quite possible they protect themselves very well. I just also know that in South Georgia, the redneck protection bubble is a thing, and I worry that that could end up exposing us to a incident. So it's not
Mhm.
necessarily that you can't go. It's that you shouldn't go without proper precautions and understanding
Yeah.
what you need to do because you're going to let your guard down. Walmart, you're blocking the whole time. You're like, stay away from me. I don't know who you are. I don't trust you. Same thing with movies and everything else. And you've also got established rules in those environments that that store workers, if they're doing their job, are trying to help maintain social distance and mask wearing requirements and all that stuff. Homes are different.
And yeah, and I'll give you two quick examples. One is Stephen and I earlier this year, back in May, we had to go up to West Virginia and do a cannonball run up there to try to get a few things, and we happened to see family members up there. And I got to tell you, we had to give them a hug because they're huggers. We're huggers, and we
Yeah.
did. And I don't know if we felt. I remember feeling uncomfortable for several days after that experience. I
Yeah.
love them. I think they're wonderful people, and I would hug them every day of the week if I could. But that's kind of the example that I would like to give to say, yes, we do let our guard down because these are people that you love. They're people that you care about. And yeah, I'll be damned if I'm going to let something happen where I don't give them a hug before I leave. Especially if I'm not going to see them for a year or 6 months or 2 years or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's kind of one example of why. Um, I lost my second example.
It's okay. That was a fine example. It's the
That
implicit
was a good one.
pressure
Yeah.
of family that
Mhm.
you
Oh,
don't you think you're gonna be able to hold off on. Yeah, go ahead if you remembered.
yeah, I do. The second is travel. My mother's a great example. I love my mother to death, and she is going to spend Thanksgiving and Christmas all by herself, doing absolutely nothing, sitting in her home by herself. And it breaks my heart because I know that somebody is going to be sitting on Christmas Day and Christmas Eve during these holidays by herself. And the reason why is not because she can't quarantine, it's because she still has to travel. and nobody's comfortable enough to say yes, a long distance travel like that is okay. And so she's, unfortunately, there are a lot of tears and a lot of the discussions, but it is what it is. And so sometimes you have to make those really hard decisions, especially in light that, especially knowing that the light's there. You see that light at the end of the tunnel. You say, "Hang on." Um,
Hmm.
so yeah,
Yeah,
it's tough decisions.
if we get those 2 vaccines, I'm spending like a week in Florida. I'm going to my parents' house and I'm gonna ride 4-wheelers for a week and cook chicken wings. And I'm just gonna be like, I'm just gonna do this because I don't know if that disease is gonna come back and I won't be able to see you again. So we're doing this anyway. More news, Travis. I love this story.
I do too. So Tom Cruise goes on a COVID rant. Tom Cruise is currently filming Mission Impossible 7 in the UK. And there was a UK newspaper, and I use newspaper loosely. It's a tabloid, the UK Sun. They actually got audio of it, and I have a couple of quotes. I will self censor them, but so it's I. He was recorded saying, "I don't ever want to see it again, ever. And if you do it, you're fired. If I see you do it again, you're gone. And if anyone on this crew does it, that's it. And you too, and you too. That's what I sleep with every night. The future of this industry." And he went on to say, "We are the gold standard. They're back in Hollywood making movies right now because of us, because they believe in us and what we're doing." Cruz can be heard on the audio recording. "We're cheating. We are creating thousands of jobs. I don't ever want to see that again." And the rant was about a couple of crew members standing closer than 6 feet apart. He has been putting forth a ton of social distancing on the set. They had earlier this year, they had a delay when they were filming in February. They had a 3 week shoot that was supposed to take place in Venice, Italy. They had to shut down because that was right as Italy was starting to ramp up everything. So he's been very, very passionate about this, and he's put up some of his own money. He's put up, shush.
Emerald.
Emerald's
He's
joining
put up,
in. He's got feelings.
yeah, he feels the same way. $676,000 out of his own pocket to have a ship that the cast and crew could isolate on while they were filming. So he's very, very passionate about this stuff and went off. Now, I also found an article with an interview with George Clooney saying he understands why Tom Cruise said what he did, and he was like, he's not wrong. He didn't overreact. He's Clooney said, "I probably would have done it differently, but that's my style." But what Cruise was saying made sense, and honestly, I kind of agree with it.
Yeah.
So maybe not the method to dress people down in public very loudly, but it also gets the point across.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Tom Cruise fan in the world, but I think what this may have intended to do is make Tom Cruise sound like a meanie, kind of like Christian Bale on the set of Terminator Salvation, like a million years ago, where
Yeah.
Christian Bale lashed out at everybody, and everybody's like, Christian Bale's a butthole. And everybody instead is going, yeah, flipping Tom Cruise, taking care of business, taking it seriously. It seems like he's had more positive press from this this outburst than negative.
And I will say I am not a fan of Tom Cruise's personal life and
Sure.
his connection with the Church of Scientology. However, his professional life, his work, and the passion that he puts into his projects, and the fact that he puts his own body on the line, he doesn't have stunts in movies that he's not willing to do, and usually does a lot of them. He's made enough money that he can produce his own stuff because nobody will insure him to make a movie because they're like, no insurance company is like, sure, go ahead, hang off the side of a plane as it takes off and film it. That's cool. Um, so he puts a lot of himself out there, and this is just another example of that. He really wants to make sure this is done, but done right. So he's really being strict about it, and I'm fine with that. I think it's good.
Yeah, and he's not wrong. He this kind of stuff is going to make or break the industry as a whole. If you can't prove you can make movies safely, you can't make movies. So it does
Right.
employ people. This goes alludes back to what you were talking about a week ago, Travis, with it all the people on set, the caterers, the costume designers, the gaffer who's taping down cables, all that stuff. Um, that those people rely on movie sets to be working, and if you have to shut down because of a case of COVID, you don't get paid, and you need to get paid. So I think it's maybe like George Clooney said, may have gone about it a different way, may have pulled them off to the side, but I think he wanted to make a point. And sometimes that's the only way people hear what you
Yeah.
what you have to say. Some people you can tell them
Pretty
gently,
much.
and you don't know if this was the first time he'd seen it. Might have been the second, third time he'd seen it, and he'd let it slide a couple times and just decided, no, these guys aren't going to learn. So
Yeah.
there could be a lot of backstory there. All we have is an audio clip. We're trying to produce an entire narrative around a short audio clip from a tabloid. So it's important to keep
Right.
that in
Exactly.
perspective.
Well, and real quickly, the only thing that I really want to add is I don't believe any of these people have anything to learn. I think it's they just need to recognize how important their actions are at this moment to not only them but also the rest of their crew. And small things can have huge impacts on whether or not they're able to continue working, whether or not people maintain employment, etc. So, in my
Yeah.
mind, it's not necessarily that they need to learn anything or that they need to spend any time studying anything. It's just that they need to be hypersensitive and hyper aware that their actions do have consequences, and sometimes, especially in these times, the consequences could be pretty serious.
Super Bowl
Yeah.
Game 6, baby. Super Bowl Game 6. One person. What ended up 9, 10 people out of that on that team or in that
Not
organization?
Super Bowl, Major League
Oh,
Baseball,
Major League
the World
Baseball.
Series.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a World
World
Series.
Series. That was
Sorry, yeah, that was. Look, I had a misfire there. I know the difference between baseball and foosball. Give me a break, nerds. Boy Scouts create a hug booth for nursing home visits. COVID-19 guidelines have made it difficult for many people to express their love physically, but Boy Scouts Troop 848 came up with a creative way to allow residents at nursing homes to connect with their loved ones. Assisted living facilities have had to place strict rules ever since a surge was seen in COVID-19. This hug booth was created at Hardest Clear Lake home to about 150 senior residents, where rules only allowed 2 loved ones to visit inside the facility. So they Becky Hudson, who's the lifestyle director at the facility, said they build exactly the way we envisioned it. They're great, safe, and come with gloves. The booths are set up outside in a courtyard and allow guests to stick their hands through large sanitized gloves and look their loved ones in the eye through plexiglass. This sounds very ET or science project to me, like put my hands through the gloves to manipulate the dangerous material that is my grandma. Um, but man, if you can't get anything else, is
Yeah,
something I mean, humans need physical touch. Humans
yeah.
need hugs. It's a stress reliever. It raises your dopamine, or it hits you in the dopamine. It raises all your neurotransmitters to safe levels. It's good. Physical touch is good, and without it, we become little shells of just crap. Um, so I think this is
This
good.
story is uplifting. If you look at the
Yeah,
pictures, by the way, if you guys get a moment to take a quick do a Google search of it and look at some of the pictures, yeah, it looks like a Boy Scout may have created. It's not perfect, but man, is it perfect, if that
yeah,
makes any sense. It definitely should warm your heart, especially around Christmas time when I've seen so many pictures of people just standing outside of doorways, one person on one glass door and the other person on the other side of the glass door, and they're just standing at each other with their hands up against the doors. And that's how nursing facilities are right now, which is so important, why they need to be prioritized getting these vaccines so that we can protect them and so that we can protect the people going in and protect the people that are working there, because they're the ones, if you look at the death rates, the nursing home, the care facilities, that's really high level of death rates there. So this is just such an uplifting, fantastic story, especially coming toward the end of or beginning, I guess, of all of these vaccines.
yeah. This is the kind of, I mean, we want to get out, we want to take the booths out, man, and the vaccines are what's going to help us get there for sure.
Yep, yep. So, speaking of authorizations, the FDA also granted emergency authorization for use of an at-home COVID test. So, folks, I got to tell you, you can get your own at-home COVID test that will probably be on the shelves in the next couple of weeks. The FDA announced on Wednesday that it has authorized Abbott's lab rapid COVID-19 test for at-home use. The doctors must prescribe it to test for patients. It's the third test authorized in the U.S. that can be completely taken at home. Patients collect the sample with the nasal swab, and an app helps them guide them through the testing process and provide them results. So I still think that DHHS will still be able to track the number of positive cases versus number of negative cases. The only difference here is that the the accuracy is a little bit less than some of the molecular tests that you go to a main lab for. So if you go to any of your main labs to get a COVID test, chances are you're going to have a really highly accurate test. There's still going to be some false positives, but on the whole, it will be fairly accurate. This one, it's a little less accurate, so you're going to have to deal with probably more of the false positives, and maybe even a few more of the false negatives. I don't know which ways, how the specificity and the sensitivity is. I haven't dove that deep into it, but I do know that it's not quite as accurate. So at the end of the day, it's really cool. You guys now don't have to go anywhere for testing. You guys can have tests either shipped to your home, or you can go pick them up at your local CVS or Walgreens or wherever you get your pharmacies.
That's pretty
Nice.
awesome. I just want to know if it comes with a robot to do the tests for me.
No,
God, I
no.
hope not.
I want the COVID robot.
No,
What
no,
if you're
that is
not like,
still.
I don't know how this thing works, but I mean it typically was a cotton swab, a 9-inch cotton swab shoved into the back of your skull, right up under your brain there. Like, or what if somebody's not brave enough to shove the cotton swab back that far, or can it be done more shallow? I would
I thought there
imagine.
was one that could be more shallow, or there was a cheek swab one. I thought. I
Okay,
could be
maybe
wrong on
that's
that.
what this is. I'm definitely interested in the method because as much as I would love an at-home COVID test, I also don't want to shove a 9-inch cotton swab in the back of my brain. And I think really the goal here would eventually get to a fast-acting 10 to 15 minute result, so you can leave your house with confidence. Right? Isn't that what something that we would hope to see? Both for multiple reasons. Like South Korea, one of the reasons they got everything under control really quickly was mass testing on a huge
Mhm.
scale. Like every flipping person got tested right out of the gate to go, you're sick, you stay home. You're not, you're fine. Go, those kinds of things. Like I would think in America, where we don't have the centralized force of government really available to us to that degree, you'd almost need people to do it themselves. We're do-it-yourselfers here. We built the frontier. We say that. No one here alive built the frontier. We just
Nope.
we just continue riding on the backs of all the dead people who did. Uh, but it seems to me like it would be a practical thing to do to get people testing themselves on the way out the door. Um, so that'd be, I don't know where I'm going with this.
Well,
I just
not
random
only
thought.
that, but I think the other thing it helps do is give you confidence to go home for Christmas. If you're looking
Yeah,
to go home for Christmas, which may be 15 minutes up the road, it may be an hour up the road, I don't know. But if you're like, well, do I go? Do I not go? This kind of test would be a perfect example of what to do to give
Mhm.
yourself to reduce that risk. I mean, the whole
Yeah.
point is that you try to find ways that reduce the risk. And if reducing the risk means take a quick test, confirm to yourself that yes, I do have been exposed, no, I have not been exposed, and then make a informed decision based on those data. That's the point.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if I
That's well
knew,
reasoned and logical,
if we could get
which
that
is why it'll
test and
never
my
work.
mom and dad could take it and just stay home a couple days from work and I could take it and Steph could, that would be a reasonable action. We've all tested
Mhm.
negative. We're not going anywhere. We're going to meet at the house. Why wasn't this available a month ago? And why isn't it available to everyone like now? Cuz it would be really convenient. Um but you try
Which
to,
in a couple weeks it will be. So
Yeah.
yeah,
all you need to do is call your doctor and say, "Hey, doc, give me one of those COVID tests because I really want to go home."
I would love to go home. I would love. My
So,
dad bought another 4-wheeler that's just about big enough for Sam to drive, and I'm like, yeah,
oh,
we gotta get there in a hurry. Anyway, Travis,
Well, you know who else could use an at-home test would be Santa Claus, because Santa infected dozens at a Belgium aged care home. The
Santa.
coronavirus pandemic continues to wreak havoc in Europe, with a man dressed up as Santa Claus now found to be behind a worrying outbreak in Belgium. 75 cases are linked to the Hamelrick aged care home in the Belgium town of Mall, just days after the super spreader Santa attended to spread some Christmas cheer and a whole lot of virus. The man dressed as St. Nicholas attended the home last weekend and going on to infect 14 staff members and 61 residents less than a week later. That's crazy amount of numbers.
That's nuts.
The mayor of Mall, Wim Keiers, told Belgium News VRT that it was a very dark day for the aged care home. You think?
Yeah.
It'll be all hands on deck during the coming week. It was made with the best intent, but it all went wrong. It has been a very dark day for the care home. It has been a very great mental strain to bear for the man that played St. Nicholas, as well as the organizers and the staff. So the staff was saying that initially everyone was wearing masks and following social distancing, and then photos got out and proved that to be wrong. So initially they said the rules had been followed, but straight away you receive photos of the families of residents where you can see this wasn't the case, said Cares. Those who have the coronavirus at the home are suffering mild to moderate symptoms. And you've got health care workers from the Antwerp province and Red Cross are there to help. So yeah, Santa spreading Christmas cheer all over 75 people.
I would
So
like to point out that Og is right. This wasn't the real Santa Claus. This was clearly one of Santa's helpers that does not have the same level of magic to protect him that Santa has. So,
clearly,
kids, don't worry.
Mhm.
Santa is not spreading COVID. It's
Yes,
just
yes,
his
that is true.
helpers
one of
are
the
not
helpers.
following the rules very well.
Yeah. So, on a more serious note, to follow up on this story, and the reason why this kind of a story is important, I'm not sure if everybody remembers the Biogen conference back in February, the kind of the major spreader within the United States.
Very little, but yeah.
Bottom line is a couple of people were overseas. They came to Boston. They went to the Biogen conference in Boston. From that conference, 100 people got sick. 100 people got sick. It was announced this week that after contact tracing those 100 people and following it through all the way to today, December 16th. Actually, I think this article was written earlier this week. So, whatever it was, it's been linked to over 300,000
Oh,
cases
gosh.
of COVID. Those 100 people, one conference, over 300,000 people have been linked to those illnesses. And that's also the ones, I mean, that neglects the ones that got it that they couldn't do contract tracing on. And so it's
Yeah.
definitely more than the 300,000. That's all that they can actually perform contact tracing. So whenever we hear numbers like, oh, 46 at Sturgis or 77 at Sturgis or what I don't mean to pick on Sturgis because it's whatever event we hear
Yeah.
things like this 6 months, 9 months later, all of a sudden 10, 100, 1,000 people become hundreds of thousands of people really, really quickly.
And that's the issue, I think, that's been at the core of this whole thing is how quickly it can spread because it could last for so long on surfaces and 14 days in your system and still be contagious.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the mortality rate may be low, but it's still a high number of people when you spread it around that much.
Mm.
And that was the big thing. So,
Yeah, it's easy to spread this thing. We've been saying it since the day we started this show is one person
Yeah.
spreads to 2.5 more people, which is a lot more than the flu virus, which was like 1 to 1.5, which is, it's a spread, but it's not 2 times the amount like, one person, two people, 6 people. I don't know how to do math, but you know what I mean? A lot of people get it really quickly. It's exponential growth. Don't laugh at me, Jacob. I'm not a math person.
That is not a laugh. That is a
I see you.
100% nodding my head, smiling in agreement. I believe in exactly what you just said, Stephen.
Thank you very much.
amen.
Thank you very. I'm a writer. I know
You,
words. I don't know
you know,
number stuff.
you're the best, right?
Yeah,
You,
yeah.
you,
I
you
know
the
the.
best.
I know the best words. That's what. All right, let's start hitting this mailbag pretty hard. We need to get in here and we need to start giving it the 1-2 punch because we got a lot of stuff to cover from you guys, and who knows, we might have commentary on it. So I want to get to it as quickly as we can. The first email we have comes from Hammer Dwarf. Good friend Hammer Dwarf. If you're on Twitch, twitch.tv/Hammer Dwarf, he just got his battle station set up, and Dwarf Fortress streaming, I expect, will come soon, and he's really fun to watch. If you like ASMR,
Yep. All the way from Hawaii.
he's
Hawaiian
super
dwarf
chill. Yeah, the
fortress.
Hawaiian. I just imagine his picture of his dwarf with the beers now turned into Hawaiian shirt dwarf with like a coconut umbrella drink. That's what I feel
Umbrella
like
drink and pineapple.
his logo.
We'll just
Um,
yeah.
he says, I feel like the anti vax rhetoric has ramped up since COVID has become a political issue rather than a healthcare one. Anti vaxxers were already there, but now the COVID deniers are taking that stance as an opposition to others. My wife and I came across this sign the other day, attached. I didn't get the photo, but it's okay. Someone did. It just reads, the vaccine is poison with the skull and crossbones. This is in wildly blue Hawaii. On Instagram, friends are touting anti vax conspiracies, and it's the same folks that post the anti COVID stuff. It's fair. These are all friends I made in college in South Carolina, so of course they're generally leaning more conservative, but it kind of hurts to see. Once the vaccine comes out, my fear is that these folks will stay unvaccinated and begin walking around without masks or other caution and say they've been vaccinated to cover for it. The next few months are going to be rough. Oh, that that is pretty good. We're talking about people who are anti-vax, not getting the vaccine and just saying they did. I know I did read at least one story that was talking about. I remember if it was an event or a workplace would require some sort of the vaccination card. Like, I'm good. I had it done. Here's my card. Sign. This is mark of the beast stuff all over the place. Don't worry about it.
Mhm.
Take your tinfoil hat off. But it's a card that just says I've been vaccinated. I can come back to work. And that kind of stuff. And that would curtail some of the easy social engineering that they could likely do. But
Hmm.
not everywhere is going to do that or require it. So,
Yeah. I mean, they require vaccines to get back into school, to do athletics, to be part of athletics.
Yep.
There are a lot of things that require vaccinations to travel abroad, etc. So you have to show proof of vaccinations. It would not shock me if one day some countries require that vaccine.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't surprise me at all. And that we talked a little bit pre-show about some or no at the beginning of the show I was talking about some of the things that ruffle my feathers in terms of bad data being spread and all that. HIPAA is another one that riles me up quite a bit because that gets misused. There'll be people that'll try to use that as a reason to not have to tell you whether or not they got vaccinated even though it has nothing to do with it. But
Sure.
it's we're gonna see a lot of that,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I think it's
and
likely.
and I understand the delays, not necessarily the anti-vaxxers, but the delayers. I get
Mhm.
it. If you want to see more data, if you're not 100% comfortable, etc. I cannot fault you for that. What I can say is that I encourage you to review the data with a speculative eye and make sure that you are comfortable doing it. And if not, then talk to somebody who maybe can review that data for you, or that has reviewed that data and make the best decision for you. But I will tell you, if what we're going for is to try to return to some societal norm that we're used to, this is the way to do it.
Yeah, and a healthy skepticism is fine. If you
Yes.
have a healthy skepticism and want to wait and see how things play out a little bit, but you're like, I'm most likely going to do it, but I just want to give it some time to marinate and to kind of get out there. That's fine. The cynicism of I'm never getting a vaccine because all vaccines are poison. That's the dangerous stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that causes all sorts of problems
I mean,
and puts me more or less in a fighting mood.
yeah, that's right. But hell, we're in this boat with the kids right now, right? What do we do with kids? What do we do with 15-year-olds? What do we do 10-year-olds? What do we do with
Yeah.
infants? What do we do with kids? And right now, if you look at kids, they're freaking vectors. Every time they go to daycare, they come back and they've got another virus that they bring into the house. So this
Yeah.
is a discussion that we're gonna have to eventually, a topic that we're going to have to figure out. And whether it's waiting on something that's more established, like some of these protein-based viruses, excuse me,
Mhm.
vaccines instead of the mRNA vaccines, then yeah, maybe we wait on that. Maybe we can't return to normal until June. Maybe it's going to be summertime. But I feel like this is a discussion that we need to have now, rather than saying, well, let's just forget the vaccine. Let's talk about how we can actually get the vaccine and get it in the hands of the people that need to get it.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm anti-vaccine because I mean I look at the data, but I don't understand any of it. So I just have to listen to Wilson on the down on the corner there, and he told me it ain't nothing but trouble, and every single
Mm.
one of them that gets us is gonna die, and the government's gonna track us. So I
Wilson
can
is the
look at that
smartest
data,
one.
but I don't understand it. I
Wilson's the
don't
smartest one
understand
in
it.
this town.
You can tell me all you want, but I just, it's that kind of argument though. I'm trying to get at is you can tell people to do their own research, but then their excuse is I don't understand what any of it says. So then they go, and then you say, well, reach out to an expert. Well, I don't trust the experts. Well, I don't know how to help you then. Do you want to keep having a
Yeah.
conversation where we try to work through this, or do you just want to stonewall it with excuses? Because you can either do it yourself or you can trust people who know. And if you don't do either one, I can't help you. I'm gonna walk away and just go. Hope you don't die from something because there's nothing you can do with that argument. Like it ticks me off when people box themselves in. I want to scream. I want to scream. I'm just like, you
Oh yeah.
either accept help or you do it yourself. You can't stop in the middle and just go, nope. Like,
No, at
what
that
is
point, it's doctor's ed medicine. It's just try not to die,
Yeah,
and that's pretty much it.
this drives me bonkers. This goes beyond COVID. It's like anything where you just choose inaction instead of doing anything is a problem.
Yes, agreed,
Okay, I can
'Cause
$100.
breathe.
I see steam. I see
It
steam. I
was,
do.
it was,
Out of the
it's,
ears.
it just bothers
So
me.
close.
I cannot abide uselessness in a person.
The
Uh,
dude will not abide.
I will not tolerate it. So this next email comes from Ace.
Uh,
Um,
if you want, we could just flip them so that you're not reading them all. If you
oh
want to
yeah,
do
yeah, yeah,
that,
yeah.
or
No, let's do that. That's great.
yeah, well, I'll read Aces and I'll paraphrase a little bit, Ace. So just we're gonna try to run through these last few because in the interest of time for the evening. Um, but Ace, of course, she talks about us and how great we are, and not to pat ourselves on the back. Thank you. No, in all seriousness, Ace was admitted to the hospital on Friday. Um, and she has some observations that she wanted to share. Um, in the hospital, you don't have to wear a mask when you're in a private room. The only time you really have to put a mask on is when you leave the room. So I guess that's nice, but risky is what she says. The local hospital has everyone that has COVID on floors separated from everyone else, so that's good. They've isolated the COVID patients. That's pretty good. Record numbers of cases in Pennsylvania in that county where she's in the hospital. So these are all like unbelievably relevant discussions because what we're talking about here is whether or not the healthcare system will be stressed due to all these COVID cases. Um, but one thing she brings up is nurses, and she says we're seeing nurses admit that they're scared to come to work. We're seeing nurses terrified as they work that they're going to get COVID and that they're going to bring it home potentially. And the bottom line here is that we're not paying enough attention to our frontline workers. And we're talking about nurses and we're talking about doctors. And yes, they're the first ones getting vaccinated, but they're the ones who are dealing with this day in and day out. They're exposed to it every single day. I mean, look at grocery store workers, look at DoorDash folks. I mean, there's a reason why every time DoorDash comes to buy my house, I'm the same way as Steven. I'll write them whatever tip I want to write them because they deserve it because they're out there doing their thing. And these are unconventional frontline workers, and we're used to frontline workers being the nurses and the doctors, and they still are. They're the ones who are experiencing this, but there's so many other frontline workers as well right now. And that's something that I really took away from Ace's email. And I said, who are these frontline workers? And yes, they need to get paid more because she was adamant in the email about we do not pay these people enough, and she's right. We don't. There are some people that deserve so much more than what we can give them at this point, and we really need to rethink some of that coming out of this pandemic because the heroes from this pandemic are not the traditional heroes that you would normally think of. They're the doctors, they're the scientists, they're the grocery store workers, they're the DoorDash delivery people. They're the people that are out there every day trying to figure out how to make you comfortable and to keep you protected. And they're not the police are still doing their thing. The fire department's still doing their thing, and they're still doing a great job of it. But they're not the kind of frontline workers that are really putting it out there like we're seeing today. And yeah, we should definitely rethink it after this pandemic's over with how we're valuing those frontline workers.
Speaking of
So
frontline
thank you,
workers,
Ace, by the way. Thank you.
yeah, speaking of frontline workers, one of the stories we didn't cover that's been all over the news was a nurse that has an OnlyFans that was getting raked over the
Oh, right.
coals for being a nurse with an OnlyFans. And if you're not familiar with OnlyFans, it's a nudie picture subscription website for individuals. So like I could go on OnlyFans and be like, want to see nudie pictures of me? Pay me $5 a month or whatever. Like that's basic. I'm simplifying, but that's kind of what it is. So I don't have an OnlyFans, by the way, but I'll start one if everybody wants it bad enough and will pay me the money. I'm kidding. It's fine. But
You probably won't do the um do the naked pictures though. I know Steven
No,
would.
no, not really. You don't want to see that. That's not interesting to anybody. But for real though, that was a big deal. As nurses, and they were like, "Well, maybe if we paid nurses an acceptable wage for where this nurse is living, I think she's in New York City, then maybe she wouldn't have to have an OnlyFans."
That's true.
And I thought that was a pretty good argument. And then I read another tweet from a guy that actually killed me. It was like, we get all up and basically it was how messed up is it that we get all bothered by somebody on OnlyFans and say they're selling their body and it's something terrible, but we're willing to work in a warehouse and break our back for minimum wage for corporate stockholders. And
For
they're like,
35
and
years and then
yeah,
not get a pension plan.
and how is that
Mhm.
not selling your body? I'm like, dang, that's perspective. It switched me up real quick. Not that I was anti OnlyFans, but it covered the confusion or the pattern disruption that I have when I think about it. I'm like, why would you do that? I'm done. I get it. I'm all for it.
Yep.
Freaking OnlyFans
Yeah,
yourself to
absolutely.
death because F the corporations in there. I'm gonna make you work in the coal mine and walk crooked and get black lung and then kick you out. Like screw it.
Mhm.
Flash your boobs, flash your wieners, whatever you want to do to people that are overage and can pay for it and are not weird, dirty people. Be safe
and
out
there's
there.
Yes.
no exploitation there. Yes, you're
Yeah,
right.
obviously.
Mhm.
I'm like the guy who talks fast at the end of the commercial. But
My disclaimers are
yeah, my
based on this.
disclaimers are proper
You have a
age.
standing disclaimer for this.
Yes, I don't feel
It's
like I
like a
should have
Cialis
one.
commercial over there, Steven. You give opinions like they give side effects.
You're it always has to come with some sort of rider that says, "I'm not saying whatever I said that sounded wrong. It's because I didn't mean it like that." Duh. Steven backpedals. Fill out your bingo cards.
Oh, and one thing I did leave out, Ace did mention in the PS that Duke was the most awesome school ever, and that on December 29th, when Pitt comes to Cameron Indoor, it's going to be on like Donkey Kong. That's what she said.
I'm
And by
sure
the way,
that's what she
I
said.
I wore this just for you. No, actually, Duke is playing right now. They're playing Notre Dame, and I think they're up by 10. So that's yeah. I got to show solidarity, man. I got to show my support.
There you
You
go.
do it.
Yes.
Do it.
We did get another email from Og. Og
Woo!
says, yeah. Og says, glad the vaccine is here. I think it will probably be a while before I can get it. As many of us in the Discord in the Legion, um, and that is as it should be. I think the vaccine should be distributed by need. The first group should be the medical workers and first responders, like we mentioned. After that, I think those high risk, the elderly, um, service workers, restaurant workers, barbers, hairstylists, and the like should get it because they need to work and make their livelihood. And yeah, that makes perfect sense. After that, I think teachers and probably kids, so we can get our kids fully back to school. I'm probably missing a few, but the last group should be those of us, including me directly, he says, that can work from home. And as long as we wear masks and take proper precautions, are at low risk. It is tempting to say, well, if you were a big enough moron that you denied everything when COVID was killing 3,000 people a day, you don't get the vaccine. But that just hurts us all. And we need to be better than that. My biggest concern with the virus is that they said they don't have a lot of information on how it impacts kids 16 to 18. This is a bit scary and brings fears of birth issues with babies as our kids grow up and start having babies. I believe this happened back in the 50s. Hopefully, it was an overreaction. There were some things I can't remember exactly what it was. Was it
Thalidomide.
thalidomide? Yeah,
Yep.
Thalidomide.
The
Yeah.
little my babies.
yep. Cancer, God knows what. Anyways, I saw your post on Discord and thought about how the vaccine should be given out, and I mean, we're all in agreement with that. That is pretty much how it should go down. You get your
Yeah.
frontline workers, you get your people, and then slowly works down. Like I know I'm in the last group of people that should be getting the vaccine because I live alone. I work at home. It's easy for me to quarantine. Do I want it? Yes. Do I want to be able to get back out and do some of the things that I used to do? Yes. If I have to wait a little bit longer for that to make sure people that really should be getting it can, 100% I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
It'll get to me eventually.
I would also like to take a moment to shout out the fact that the Legion of Dorks has some class act human beings in it. Because I'm just saying we should be better than that. This is how I want to feel. Is if
Mhm.
you're not willing to do whatever, you're killing all these people, you don't get the vaccine. But we got to be better than that. And that's a refrain you'll hear amongst everybody in the Legion of Dorks is often, I want to be this way, but I know I can't be this way because society demands we're better. And
Yes.
that speaks to a lot of the people within the Legion and on our Discord, just in conversations I've had over the years. It's
Mhm.
just really cool to be in a community that seems to majority feel like it's better for everyone for us not to just screw the person that screwed us. Yeah, take that, dirt
Yeah. I
bag.
mean,
Yeah.
you know, the selfish version of me says, "No, give me the damn
Yeah,
vaccine. I wanna get
right.
back to what I'm doing, and screw if you didn't want the vaccine, fine, you don't get one, but I know better,
Yeah,
and I know that I need to be better, and by extension, we all need to be better." And that is a great thing about this community is that it's full of people that have that same mindset, which is awesome.
yeah, yeah. It's cool. It's cool.
Can't
Says
agree
last.
more. One thing I wanted
Yeah,
to bring up because we didn't really touch on this. Couldn't agree more with Og about the kids. We just don't have enough information for it. And I'm not even talking about the 16 to 18-year-olds. I'm talking about 0 to 18 at this point.
Mhm.
Anything in children. And so that worries me a little bit because what is this vaccine going to do? And maybe this will be a deep dive in next week or the week after, but when we start getting this vaccine to roll out and we start getting a lot of people to start getting this, where do we go from there? Because we're still going to have a large percentage of children unvaccinated or potentially haven't been exposed to it yet. Are we going to say that it's okay to then go out? I mean, what kind of guidance are we going to provide to people with kids, especially those that maybe are younger, maybe are older? I don't know. It raises a whole lot of questions for me relative to what we do in March, April, May, when the vaccine really starts rolling out to some of these later groups of people, like you mentioned, Dog. Do
Mhm.
we start going back to normal? Do we start bringing our kids out? What do we do? And it's not a topic for deep dive today, but
yeah.
Augie definitely kind of got those wheels turning for me about what we should do with kids in the future.
I'll tell you what we
Mhm.
will be awfully uncomfortable with everything we choose to do to start with. We haven't spent 2 weeks doing this, y'all. We've established habits, routines. Our brains have started to recognize this is what life is. So anything outside of it's going to generate some level of fear. Whether it's stronger or I mean, it's fear you can hopefully talk yourself through and be like, I'm being a little bit overreactive. We're okay now. We can do this. We have a vaccine, but I would urge anybody with small children or children of any age to just be patient. I'm
Yeah.
terrified for Sam's anxiety level. He's been away from kids and with us since March, and that's going to be a battle for us to have to tackle. I know they're malleable. Kids bounce back. Kids have a lot of things they can handle, but it's going to be a tough haul for everybody who's been in a situation where they've been inside and quarantined off. So be patient with
Mhm.
each other. If your kids don't want to immediately come flying home, be like, I get it, because you're trying to work through some emotions, and let's figure this
Right.
out. There's always people to talk to. Anyway, Adam of Geekheim wrote us an email. He says the vaccine is huge news. If all the idiots that need to take it, no matter what, it's great. Uh, this issue, and those include us idiots, and we're idiots who need to take it, and we'll take it. This issue has
Yes.
become so tied to politics, and my stance with talking politics in places like work. So I hear if anyone is of a certain red party, I just don't bother engaging unless they address me directly about it. And the leader of that whole thing has ignored it, so for the most part, so I get it. With regards to masks
Mhm.
and the vaccine, I've decided anyone I hear being negative towards them, I'm willing to interject. That's how important this is to everyone. So far, I've only really heard one person honestly asking about the early advice from reputable sources and such that masks didn't do anything. I just tried to make them see that recommendations and opinions on things can change with new information. I think it was a winning conversation with that person. I've moved well past the point of being worried that this is safe. I implicitly trust Fauci, and he says to trust the career scientists at the FBA, or not FBA, FDA. He says, I'm sure my family and friends are all fine with taking it and answering their questions. My mother, 79, with a level of congestive heart failure at times, is going to discuss it with her doc to make sure things are fine. I've even encouraged her to call the doctor to show her interest so she can get on the list sooner. One of my biggest fears during this has been my giving it to her. So yeah, like if that's a perfectly valid worry. You got somebody with a underlying health condition that is pretty much shown to cause hospitalization at a higher percentage. Any circulatory issue has been a much stronger reason to end up in the hospital. So that's a big deal. But yeah, I'm glad she's trying to get on a list. Because I think we've done that with a family member of ours. Is like, hey, talk to the doc. What's the deal with the vaccine? Can we get on that list? How do we get on that list? Um, and that's a big deal. And I think when you have a valid reason to do so, um it makes perfect sense. Like Travis was saying,
Mhm.
I know I'm a healthy 35-year-old dude. I keep thinking that's young until I realize it's not, because there's new words, Twitch bans, that I don't know what they mean. But at the same time, I'm not over 65 with congestive heart failure. So yeah, I'm probably gonna be one of the last ones to get it. Stephanie will probably be one of the last ones to get it. My only concern there is Sam has asthma. It's allergy based asthma, but it's asthma. It worries me. Um, but I don't know if, like Jacob was saying, there's not enough data for me to say, here, stick my 5-year-old. Let's do this.
Well,
Um,
and they won't. They with the emergency
yeah, they
youth
wouldn't.
authorization, the healthcare workers cannot.
Yeah. Well, good.
Yeah.
That keeps the kids safe. No unethical sticking going on around here. Plus, Sam was not looking forward to it. You say shot. He's like, shot? No. Kid took shots like a boss till he was like 4 and figured out what they were, and then he's like, oh no.
No, thank you.
You could be like shot. He's like, oh, okay. The funny thing is, they can take his blood, and he's like, he watches. It's stupid, but a shot, just, we shouldn't call them that. We should abolish the
No.
word shot around children and just say vaccination. And it doesn't
Yeah.
sound nearly as intimidating. I don't know why we call them shots. It's stupid. It's like
I
Yeah.
don't know. I
you
know for a
watch.
long time I didn't like needles, but now that I've been giving blood like every other week or every week for the last year, um, it's gonna be nothing anymore.
Out of
Yeah.
curiosity, do you mind if I ask what was the impetus behind weekly donations or monthly
Well,
donations or however often
so
you?
I would go in occasionally and I would do like the whatever it is every 8 weeks, I think is what they let you do for whole blood. And or if there was a blood drive and I hadn't donated in a while, I'd stop by the blood drive. And one day when I was in, they asked if I would be interested in doing a platelet donation. They're like, it takes a little bit longer, it takes an hour to an hour and a half. They said, but we hook you up to the machine, you have an IV, you just sit there and do it, and you can do it a little more often because you get most of your blood back. And I was
Yep.
like, sure, I could do that. And I did it a few times, and then I found out I ended up being a match directly to somebody who's hospitalized right now and is in dire need of platelets, is what they keep telling me. So there was at one point it was two of us in this area that were a match for this person. So we were alternating weeks. I would go in and that person would go in the next week. Well, then they traveled and went out of the country. So then they started getting a hold of me, and I went 3 weeks in a row, to the point where the third week, the girl that was sticking me was like, "We might as well just tattoo the markings on here of where your vein is, so it's easier to find." But yeah, it's basically, and for me, it's like it's not a big imposition. I go and I sit with my iPad and I watch a movie or I listen to a podcast for an hour and a half, and I do it every other Saturday. I try to do it Saturday mornings. That way, I don't sleep till noon on a Saturday. So, and it's helping people out. So I'm happy to do that. A small imposition in my weekend, and I'm doing some kindness in the world, and that for me is a big thing. So
High
That's
five,
awesome.
sir.
Yeah, that's
yes.
awesome. Super great.
Yeah.
Well, guys, it has been a long show, but a good show. The feedback from everybody, the emails, oh my word, that was fun.
It
Definitely
really
do that
was.
again. Yeah, definitely do that again. I would love some more voices too. So if you guys know people, you chat with people, and you're like, hey, I know this
Hmm.
show. They talk about COVID all the time. Why don't you put your thoughts in the email or tell me what you want to say and I'll relay it. That'd be awesome. I'd love to get more of that stuff because, like we said at the top of the show, we don't have guests anymore. Travis is our permanent guest. Travis is a host in his own right on this show. So he's taken up that third quadrant, y'all. which means if you want to get your voice heard, you got to do it in new ways. And that's with email
Yep.
or Twitter or your Anchor app, where you can call us up and hit the button and be like, I'm leaving them a voicemail. Done. Um,
And if the Anchor app doesn't work, maybe I can work out having a voicemail line that you can just
oh,
call and leave a
Travis.
message. We'll see. We'll see what I can do on that.
Travis, and our Michigan
Travis with the hookup.
correspondent has his own setup over there. He can make this happen. That sounds great. But yeah, if you enjoyed the show, give us a review on your favorite podcasting service of choice. Follow us on Twitter at staring_goats. Mainly, that's so you can ask us questions at that account. I don't really tweet from it because I find Twitter to be mostly a dumpster fire and nobody pays attention to it anyway. So well, I don't know what I would add there that I don't add on my Twitter account, Steve H&H. Travis, where can people find you and your work?
Oh, anywhere that there is social media, I am probably on it as TV's Travis. My show, my main show that I do outside of this is at tvstravis.com. That's Wait You Haven't Seen, where you both have been on talking about movies. So, and that's my big things. I like to talk about entertainment and share entertainment with people. So, yeah, TV's Travis pretty much anywhere. I can't
Awesome,
think of
awesome.
outside of maybe PlayStation Network. And that's just because I had PlayStation Network years before I came up with TV's Travis.
Years before you were the TV's Travis.
That's
Jacob's
right.
not anywhere. If you want to get to him, you got to go through me. Or
Go
you
to
can.
He's smart.
staring at goats podcast at gmail.com. I do check that every Wednesday.
That's
There we
it.
go.
That's how you talk to Jacob. Staring at Goats Podcast at gmail.com. Be back here tomorrow for horseshoes and hand grenades. If you're listening to audio, I would suggest you go ahead and subscribe to that because that's a lot of fun. You'll find all the notes to all the show or all the links to all the stories in our show notes on the description of the podcast. And we thank you guys. Thanks to our patrons, Hammerdorf, Og, Adam, and Christina of Geekheim, Oddly Normal One, and our parents. twodorks.net/support is how you join the Patreon and pitch us $1 a month. And you guys are amazing, and we'll see you next time on Staring at Goats. All right, that's the show in the can.
Another one in the can,
Boom.
baby. Woo!
That was a good one.
37.